This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN Newswatch. I'm Wendy Griffith. We begin this half hour in the Middle East. The growing amount of firepower assembling on Israel's northern border suggests that war with Hezbollah could start any day now, despite the hope a peace deal could possibly prevent a war. Paul Strand reports from Jerusalem.
Israeli troops continue gathering and preparing on the border with Lebanon for what could soon be full-on war. Their purpose is to stop Hezbollah terrorists who've been attacking northern Israel from Lebanon almost daily for months. That's forced some 80,000 Israelis to flee their homes and empty out whole communities.
Living right now in Kiryat Shmona is very sad. The city is empty most of the time.
Hezbollah hit the north with some 40 rockets Thursday, saying it was to avenge a number of recent Israeli strikes on the terrorist group. As the war against Hamas grinds on in Gaza and tensions mount in the north, Israel's prime minister keeps trying to draw the world's attention to Iran, the massive power behind Hezbollah, Hamas, and other groups. Benjamin Netanyahu is warning Iran and his proxies are, quote, on the march to conquer the Middle East. Visiting the north, Israel's President Isaac Herzog complained the international community is doing little to stave off war. So he said it shouldn't be surprised if, quote, the situation spirals out of control. Even as Israel braces for what could be another massive and painful war, survivors of the Hamas sneak attacks at the Nova Music Festival on October 7th came together Thursday in exuberant defiance of terrorism. It was their first mass gathering since the brutal assaults. Nimrod Arnin's sister was among the more than 360 killed there.
On that Saturday at the beginning of October, our light was put to the test, a test which in our worst nightmares we didn't imagine we will have to pass.
On stage, dancers reenacted the horror of that morning. And on the ground, tens of thousands stood in a long moment of silence to commemorate all who were lost. But the main message of the day? Israelis will not let the terrorists steal away their full embrace of life, their joy, their dance.
Nothing can stop us from living our lives here in Israel, and nothing can stop us from keep on dancing and living.
In a moment of enlightenment, we realize what is going to be the essence of our life from now on. We will dance again.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Just incredible. Well, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is with us now from Jerusalem. Chris, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warning about Iran. What are his concerns?
Well, Wendy, he's talking about a severed front war that Iran has against Israel that would include Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis down in Yemen, militias in Iraq and Syria that are backed by Iran, the West Bank and Judea and Samaria, and Iran itself. What they also want to do, Wendy, is they want to topple Jordan. And basically their strategy is what's called a ring of fire surrounding Israel. And they do, as Paul said in his report, they want to conquer the Middle East. That includes Saudi Arabia, the Gulf countries. Their long-term goal, a global caliphate. And Netanyahu recently reinstated working groups on Iran's nuclear program. That includes the Mossad, the Shin Bet. Iran's nuclear program is advancing dramatically. Some people say they're on the brink of a nuclear weapon. They've tripled their uranium enrichment. And the IAEA that has been monitoring Iran's nuclear program said there's no credible civilian justification for what they're doing right now. And Netanyahu also said at any cost and in any way will thwart Iran's intention to destroy Israel.
Chris, how close is a major war in the north, and how will this differ from the war with Hamas?
Wendy, it seems very close. It could be just weeks away. The IDF is preparing maybe 3 divisions, 25,000 ground troops that may go into South Lebanon. Diplomacy that's been trying for the last several months is not working. Hezbollah won't unilaterally withdraw to the Litani River. That's about 18 miles from the Israeli border. Wendy, you remember in 2006, we were there on the Lebanese border on the Second Lebanon War, and Israel is promising it's not going to be like that. This will be a much bigger war. Hezbollah is maybe 10 times the size of Hamas. And Israel's also saying that Lebanon will pay a price for this.
Yeah, I'll never forget the Katyushas going overhead and hearing the machine gun fire. But now, they're saying it will be much worse than what we even experienced. Well, you were just back here in the States for 10 days. Tell us, what were your impressions of being away from all that's happening in Israel?
Well, Wendy, it's kind of an interesting experience. When you're here in Israel, almost day by day, you're hearing about what's happening in the south, what's happening in the north, and the possibility of a war, a much wider war in the north. I would say that some are very aware of what's happening here in the region. I would add some of those people are watching CBN News, but others are very unaware of what's happening and why it's important to them. The battle Israel is facing, and they've been saying this for many months since October 7th, that really Israel is the tip of the spear in the battle against global Islam. Israel is on the front lines, but the larger target is the United States and the West. And there's a saying that goes, what stays in the Middle East doesn't stay what goes on in the Middle East doesn't stay in the Middle East. So it's very important for people to be aware of what's happening here and certainly be praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Absolutely. And they can, of course, always get more about what's happening on your show called Jerusalem Dateline. Tell us what we can expect on tonight's show.
Wendy, we'll have a update on the war. We're going to have analysis with CBN News Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl. We have a story on the ultra-Orthodox being drafted into the IDF and why that actually poses a threat to the coalition government of Benjamin Netanyahu. We have a story about the grandson of a Nazi officer. He tells his story of what it's like to grow up in that kind of a family. And also, we have a story, an added story about the survivors of the Nova Music Festival, and they're trying to heal and rebuild their lives after what happened on October 7th.
Oh, I loved what we just saw in Paul's piece, and they said it's a time. There's a time to mourn, and there's a time to dance. So happy to see that, and happy to see you, Chris. Chris Mitchell from Jerusalem. Thanks as always. Stay safe. Well, you can see more important stories about what's going on in Israel on the latest Jerusalem Dateline. That's tonight on the CBN News Channel at 8 Eastern Time. You can also watch it on the CBN News app or on YouTube. Well, back here at home, Democrats are panicking over President Biden's shaky performance in last night's historic debate with former President Trump. Some are even calling for Biden to be replaced as the nominee. Some voters are also concerned. George Thomas reports from the debate site in Atlanta.
Within the opening minutes,
eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare,
it became clear to the former president's surrogates that Biden was in trouble.
Biden campaign said this would be the reset moment for Joe Biden's candidacy. And what they saw is the American people saw a weak, horrible president who is the weakest president in our nation's history.
Voter concerns about Biden's age and mental sharpness were on display during the 90-minute debate as the president struggled at times to answer questions.
He repeated things that are not true, but he's also said things that, to be frank, there are times I couldn't understand what he was saying.
The showdown had Biden and Trump, the two oldest candidates to ever seek the White House, trading barbs on a number of topics, from the economy.
The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce-back jobs, a bounce-back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
To abortion.
But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals.
To immigration.
When he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go.
Trump pushed back, accusing Biden of putting in place weak border policies that make America unsafe.
We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open.
The two also tackled wars in Ukraine and Gaza. But by the end of the night, everyone was talking about the president's poor performance.
I have dealt with people that have dementia before. and it's very obvious just from the look on his face, not understanding what's going on, the surprise and shock look sometimes, the eyes, the very stiff face, the very stiff hands. They're all very, very prominent signs of what's going on.
The White House tried to put a brave face on the evening, telling reporters that Biden had a cold. Surrogates like California Governor Gavin Newsom attempted to sidestep voter concerns that the president is too old.
There's a lot of concern about the president's stamina and mental health. Are you concerned?
I'm worried
81 years. Are you concerned about that going forward?
I agree. I worry about President Trump's stamina.
No, I'm talking about the president.
I was talking about President Trump as well.
One top Biden donor reportedly called the president's performance disqualifying, telling Reuters that he expects Democrats will urge him to step aside ahead of the party's national convention in August. Still, in a post-debate rally, Biden told supporters that he was confident he could win against Trump.
Look, we're going to beat this guy. We need to beat this guy. And I need you in order to beat him. You're the people I'm running for.
Coming into this debate, Biden and Trump found themselves nearly tied in national polls. We'll see in the coming days whether this debate did anything significant to change those dynamics. For now, though, the race is set to be decided here in Georgia and a handful of other key swing states like Michigan, Arizona, and Wisconsin. Meanwhile, voters there and across the country will get another look at the candidates September 10th. George Thomas, CBN News, Atlanta.
Great reporting. Thanks, George. Coming up, see how one survivor is helping others break free from human trafficking. Stay with us. You're watching CBN News Watch. Welcome back to CBN News Watch. Earlier this week, the U.S. State Department shined the light on global human trafficking and those who are fighting it. More than 27 million people worldwide are victims of human trafficking. Many of them are trafficked for sex. CBN's Charlene Aaron recently spoke with one survivor who is helping others break free.
Amber Love comes from a long, sad line of trafficking survivors.
My birth mother was trafficked by her mother, and my grandmother was also trafficked as well.
Love recently shared her story on CBN's Prayer Link, including details of childhood sexual abuse, abandonment, and how at 18 she found herself being groomed for sex.
I remember the first encounter that I had being exploited was with a 38-year-old man who was providing me shelter and a place to stay, but it required that I wait for him in his bed.
Wow.
And because I had nowhere to go or no idea what to do or how to survive, I did those things for a while. And what I found out was that when I decided I don't want to do this anymore, there's got to be another way, I found myself homeless again.
And that led to 9 months of being trafficked for sex, years of trauma and drug addiction.
I remember being in a hospital because my kidneys were failing. I remember hearing the doctors say, "I can't believe she woke up." And I prayed one of those prayers that's, "God, if you, I will," right? And I gave him a bunch of stipulations that I didn't think he could possibly do. And a family member came into the hospital room and gave me this application to an addiction recovery program. And it met all of those God, if you requirements.
Wow.
So I was kind of like, well, it's kind of like jail and church camp. I guess I said it, I need out.
That decision eventually led her to the Safe House Project, a nonprofit aiming to eradicate human trafficking while offering holistic support to those who want out. According to Brittany Dunn, a co-founder of the organization, they've helped more than 500 victims nationwide so far.
Every day we're out there working to elevate people's understanding of the issue so that more people feel like they can identify and receive the support services. Our survivor support team is out there every single day fielding calls from across the country of survivors or advocates or law enforcement who have identified somebody saying, "I'm ready to get out."
A freedom Love has come to know and share as a member of the Safe House Project staff.
Oftentimes, human trafficking becomes your identity, but that's not who we are.
Yeah.
We are children of God. We were bought with from a price. Our redemption has been paid for. And so we belong to the Lord. In spite of all of that pain and suffering, letting go of that, trusting, hoping that God would put a new identity in my hands, and that's what I hope for them.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. Well, still ahead, we have a first look at Kevin Costner's new film called Horizon, American Saga. Stay with us. You're watching CBN News Watch. Welcome back to CBN News Watch. Kevin Costner's Horizon, an American Saga, is an epic Western film Costner produced, directed, and funded with $38 million of his own money. Our Ephraim Graham sat down with Costner and some of the actors of the film.
You and I are standing guard in one of the last great open spaces. These people think that if they're tough enough, smart enough, and mean enough, all this will be there someday. There's no army of this earth that's going to stop those wagons coming.
This has been in your brain since at least 1988.
Yeah.
To be so massive, take me back to the germination, if you will.
Yeah.
Start small.
It was two guys. One was lucky, and the other one was unlucky, and my character was unlucky.
Ain't from here. Something you want to say?
That's the character I carried forward. And out of that movie, 4 were constructed.
Looks like we got ourselves a bad man right here.
You invested a lot of money in this yourself. I imagine you had to have a conversation with your children about this
My children
investment.
had a conversation with me.
Wow, what happened?
And wanted me to pursue my dream, and they said, we don't care as long as you're happy. It says a lot about who they were.
The men who hunt this land, they're not going to share it with you. What you build, they will burn down.
You have said that this is both a beautiful story and a hard story. Why?
Because it's the truth of what happened as the United States was expanding west.
Lieutenant, there's no reason for you to stay here. But here you are.
A lot of people during that time were just trying to find a home, to have some freedom, to gain some independence. And yet in doing that, they were tearing away the homes of people who had been inhabiting it for a very long time. It is the truth of human resilience, of people trying to hold on to their home and people trying to find a home. And they're all led to this very desperate place.
I will take from you until you are wiped clean from this land.
What was it like knowing you're part of this now?
Exciting, life-affirming, heartwarming, fulfilling.
All I'm trying to do is get as many of us as I can, as far as I can.
Kevin taps you to play this role, and you learn how long this project has been in his heart and how committed and passionate he is about it. What does that do to you when accepting the role?
Yeah, it means a lot to me. And at the time, I didn't know that he'd first had the idea in 1988. That just makes me want to say, hey, whatever you need, you got it.
Get in here quick. Quick. Come on. It's all right. I'm gonna be with Dad. No.
What does this story say about the role of women? They're very pronounced in this story. What do you think it says?
We don't see women as much as maybe we'd like to in Westerns, or we haven't, but they were very much there, and it's just a thrill to get to play meaty, delicious characters and to play women that feel so familiar and yet are dealing with a completely different set of circumstances.
The women in the film are all stand out in such fierce ways, and that has been really cool to see as we've been, getting to see movie 2, is that, that plays in such a beautiful way, and it starts in movie 1, and so I'm really excited for people to see this whole saga and what Kevin has created.
I will tell you this. In these territories, men will come try you.
This is a dream role for you.
Well, to be in a Western that Kevin Costner is directing is a dream because I was obsessed with Dances with Wolves when I was younger. So, so that was the piece that was really enticing.
We just got to keep going.
What do you think this story says about the faith of people during this time to embrace a promise and to push forward despite?
Look, it was a violent time, but to undertake that kind of perilous journey, they'd have to have some faith. They'd have to have some hope that everything's going to work out right. And I think it's kind of an interesting concept that, in a weird way, maybe Kevin's trying to explore. It's reflecting our time now. And maybe he's saying that America might be going through this struggle now, but we've got to have hope that we're going to come out the other side and be able to forgive ourselves for what's happened in the past and go forward.
That looks like a promising place. The place I might be able to see myself. You just have to stand at the river and you can see what the men and the women up there see. That's what drove us across the ocean to this country in the first place. Hope.
What does this story say about the power of a promise?
That it will drive people west into a place they know nothing about. That the idea of hope, the idea of owning something is so powerful that a man will take his wife and children into an area that he has no knowledge of.
We talked enough.
I've heard really good things about this. Horizon, an American Saga, is now in theaters nationwide. Stay with us. More CBN News Watch right after this. Welcome back to CBN News Watch. Well, even a small thing can make a big difference. That's the philosophy of 13-year-old Juliana Dema. She's created her own specialty, sewing and donating bright, colorful patterned gowns for hospitalized children around the world. It all started in 2017 when Dema's cousin was admitted to a pediatric unit and the teen didn't like the drab gowns. As she developed her sewing skills, Dema decided to make cheerful hospital gowns for other kids for free. She says she wants children to know that they're loved, and I think that is a great way to show it. Beautiful gowns, wow. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Join us next time. We'll see you. Bye-bye.